Hey everybody, how you doing today? Welcome to our fun JFrog coffee series. Talking today about OSS security and compliance with Artifactory. My name is Bill Manning. I'm one of the solution architects here, and my fellow co-host is Asaf. Asaf, introduce yourself, please.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Oh,
My name is Asaf Cohen. What?
Oh, Asaf, you're muted.
I'm muted. No. Probably the microphone.
Uh-oh.
Hold on. You hear me? No.
Uh-oh, we might have some technical problems.
All right, go ahead. I'll join.
All right, well, I'll wait for Asaf to come back on. Asaf is our director of security. He and I are going to be talking today about the fun, exciting world of open source software. So first of all, let's go to the next part. So just so you guys are aware, and you guys probably know this, as software developers, whether you're DevSecOps or DevOps or just a developer in general, a release manager, remember, 85 to 90% of your code is someone else's code. That's something to keep in mind, right? So that's why we're here today, is to talk about how we manage those kind of components. And so first thing you should know is, as we go through this, what is FOSS? What is free and open source software? If you're not familiar with it, my favorite adage is, of course, it's free as in speech, not as in beer. But basically, it's all the things that software developers produce for other software developers. All the libraries you depend on as a developer, no matter what kind of software you're building, most of your software is someone else's. So how do you know whether or not those are safe and secure and compliant? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So a couple of things you should remember is, besides the fact that 85 to 95% of your code base is some open source software, 99% of that code base is, has at least some sort of vulnerability, right? That's a major thing. And we want to make sure that we reduce the risk of those vulnerabilities to ensure that you're building the safe and most compliant software you can do without jeopardizing your company or your organization or yourself. I mean, really what it comes down to is no company, no developer wants to be attributing to a headline that so-and-so software company divulged all this information from their system based on something, something that was in their software. I mean, come on, guys, let's look at SolarWinds, right? I mean, SolarWinds was, a huge thing, 18,000 affected customers. It opened it up for a lot of government agencies, but the big thing is that it was a transitive dependency. Right, it was a dependency that the software developers depended on. It was a actually very slick and skilled attack. But the idea is it was something that was brought in with something else, right? It was an indirect transitive dependency to software that was brought in and caused the exposure. And so when you have this, remember, 49% of the code base, it's funny, if you look at it, it has at least one high-risk vulnerability. One high-risk vulnerability. I mean, that's more than sufficient for anybody to do something really nefarious to the things that you do as a developer. And of that, the thing is the best part is that 90% of the applications have at least one component that's out of date by 4 more years or has been completely abandoned. Eventually with things like remediation, you can fix that, as I stated in the next slide. But the big thing is that how do you know? How do you know what you have in your software? How do you know what you're exposing your potential, threat levels are? And understanding that those components that you're using, how they attribute to the software that you're developing, and then how do you go ahead and reduce the risks? So one of the things that we want to make sure is that first you need to understand the mentality. It's not someone else's problem. Right? So that's a major thing that we always see. When you talk about security in software and understanding those transit dependencies and the software that you're using to build software, it's developer responsibility. It's a release team's responsibility. It's CI and CD, not just InfoSec. It's everybody. And make sure that you have something in place that will help you and still give you the velocity you want as an organization, but at the same time, ensuring that you're not bringing in anything nefarious in that could jeopardize your company. How do you do that, right? Vulnerabilities are on the increase. Nefarious means are on the increase. The attacks that are happening are becoming more sophisticated over time. And the thing is that, a lot of governments regulations now are being put in place to attribute, to make sure that, you understand what's going in your software. Asaf and I have given talks on software bill of materials, which is a way to go ahead and, understand, and we'll be actually talking about that, I think, tomorrow or the next day. This is a 5-day series we're putting together. But understanding what's in the software, so this way, when you look and you do detect something nefarious, you know how to fix it and how to go in and see how far back it's affected. And the things we're going to talk about today is of course, Artifactory and Xray. And how do you utilize Artifactory and Xray to make it easier for you to be compliant? How do you make it so that your software is safe? How do you do it from everything from shift left, which is one of the talks we'll do later on this week, where you have everything at the developer level. Remember, the most ROI you can get is at the developer level. It's the frontline defense, and we'll talk about that. Also, we're going to be discussing how to integrate into your CI process to make sure that you can automate most of these functions, because making it automated makes it easier. And then the next thing we'll also discuss later on this week is how do you take that information and come up with remediation plans to make sure that you can do it as quickly as possible while, like I said, while still not affecting your velocity. Asaf, did we fix your audio issue yet, or are you still?
Let's check. Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm assuming I can't hear you, unfortunately. Maybe unplug your microphone, try that, and give that a shot.
No, still no?
Or you already tried that, maybe.
I tried it, all right.
That's okay.
Apologies.
I'm going to keep going. While we try to figure this out. So let's talk about Xray, right? Because the thing that we're going to utilize for this discussion and the rest of this week is our Xray product, right? And assuming that if you're here, you already have some experience and some understanding what Artifactory is. If you haven't, it's our universal binary repository manager. It manages all your third-party transitive dependencies for all the software you use. It provides stability and consistency for your development organization. It also gives you the ability for you to go ahead and create release cycles. So one of the things we'll talk about later on. Catherine Turner, I can hear us fine. It might be just me. Oh, it might be just me. Hold on.
All of you can hear me?
Oh, yeah, this actually might be me. How do I change my settings?
Thanks, Catherine. I appreciate it. I started to unplug and replug and rejoin and go back and forth.
Oh, so I can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay. So thank you very much, everyone.
It wasn't routing it to my AirPods for some reason.
Never mind. Okay, so thank you very much for being here. My name is Asaf Cohen. I lead the security solutions at JFrog, and we have an excitement those 5-day series where we're going to talk about security. So I just wanted to come in and introduce myself, and we can have it later on. We're going to have some time for questions, and during the demo, I can chip in and share some more light. If you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat, and we'll continue. I didn't want to bump into your flow, Bill, so just keep on going. I'll jump in the next opportunity.
No worries. I guess the problem was me. That's okay. So basically, where I was at is that with Xray, is our product that integrates into Artifactory to ensure that, first of all, that you can build your software with more forethought into security in a way that can be everything from, like I said, the developer at shift left, automated as part of your CI process. You can even have it behind the scenes as part of the actual Artifactory integration itself. But it also allows you to produce things like reports and produce sort of level of analytics. We'll talk about how you could also integrate it into your software distribution process towards the end of this week as part of the series. But really, it's a continuous security implementation. So it's constantly scanning, it's constantly learning, it's constantly looking at all the components you have. But it also not only allows you to see visibly into what the components are and their potential threat levels, but it also allows you to take actions that can help actually go ahead and make sure that you're doing things safe and secure. Of course, we're having a couple of hiccups here on our first day, but that's okay. We will hopefully work all these bugs out internally. But the thing is that the way it integrates into Artifactory is that whenever you have a component, you can designate a repository to be scanned. So our Xray product, I'll explain how that works in a minute. But then the actions are really the important bits. And since we're actually at the point now where we did lose a little time, I'm actually going to jump in and actually show some pieces off. So Asaf, if you want to say anything while I'm doing this, I'm going to set up right now to share my screen.
Sure. So when it comes to like security and compliance, the approach of having a binary analysis approach that can handle and scan the binary at a different stage of the promotion process, that allows you essentially to have a specific policy at the different stages and have full control and visibility within the pipeline to examine the binaries. I think this is a very good practice to be able to have ongoing, continuous monitoring of the binaries and their violations. We see more and more such of those regulations. I just had a call this morning where they had like a company compliance policy that they want to enable, they want to grant or disallow specific licenses. So using the policy metrics and policy setup, you can enable those business processes, I would say, in an automated manner that will allow you to get full visibility all across the development teams. So Bill, I see that you have the platform ready.
I do. So one of the things you want to do is that once you've had Artifactory and Xray enabled, you'll be able to go in and designate, first of all, we'll start off at the repository level. If you're not familiar with the way artifacts are stored in Artifactory, we store artifacts as a checksum-based approach, meaning that every time you upload a binary, a unique SHA-256 checksum is calculated for that binary. It's physically stored as that binary inside of the actual file store, but it's referenced via metadata. And one of the ways that our Xray product is so efficient is it uses that Xray data, so that metadata, hands it off to Xray for evaluation. This makes it so that you're only going through a metadata list, not a physical binary list. And on the other side of it, we have this massive repository of potential threats, right? It's called Zuck. It's actually a combination of our own research. It's a combination of also with our partnership with risk-based security. And now you have basically a list of binaries on one side, and you have a list of potential threats on the other. And once you've actually gone in, if you have any sort of binaries that you have in here, one of the things you can do is that when you have your repositories designed, you can go ahead and say enable indexing at Xray. This provides Xray with that list of binaries you wish to evaluate. Once you've done that, you can go in and start building policies and watches. And policies and watches are the way you actually evaluate the binaries and then the actions you take. So policies are how you do that, and then watches is how you apply them. Let's talk about policies first, because this is very important to some of the first steps. We're not going to talk about, by the way, first of all, the ROI and everything, and we talked about, in dealing with that first level of defense with shift left. But let's start here. So, of course, when you design your actual Xray policies that you want to evaluate the binaries you're looking at, first of all, you're going to give your policy a name. You're going to give it a description, and then you're going to choose the flavor in which you want to actually have the evaluation done. It can be either security focused or it can be license compliance focused. Let's start with security first. And when we talk about looking at this, first thing you're going to want to do is define some policy rules. You're going to give the rule a name. And then you're going to have the criteria. So if you were to think about it programmatically, the criteria is the if statement, and then the actions are the actual then, right? So this is the fun part. So we use either CVE, so you can either use the low all the way to critical. And then, by the way, we also have all severities. And don't discount all severities like things like info and warnings, because some CVEs aren't apparent yet for some binaries. They might be in process, where info and warnings will potentially give you information that something is under investigation as we speak. Or you can use CVSS score. So you can go ahead and set your range in which you want something evaluated. So in this case, it might be something like 3.1 to 6.5. And if these criteria are met, this is when the actual fun stuff begins. So first of all, it's going to generate a violation. Secondly, you could do things like trigger a webhook, which you can go ahead and publish information. For myself personally, while I'm doing this, I actually have mine set up so that I'm actually using Slack as my notification. So I get a notification in my Slack channel if there's a potential threat. You can also go and notify a recipient. So in other words, when you apply a rule to a thing called a watch, which is how you apply these rules, one of the parameters you set is actually email recipient list. You can also have a separate email recipient list if you wanted to for more high-level functions like red team. If you hook up your Jira system, you can actually go ahead and actually create a Jira ticket based on this evaluation. And then we have the super aggressive features. And the super aggressive features that we have here are things like block download, which will block the consumption of any binary that's historically already stored inside of Artifactory. Or you can be preemptive and do more block on scanned artifacts, which means this gives your developers a little more freedom to bring in the binaries they wish to do. And what they can do is that the binaries come in, they get evaluated by Xray. If it meets your criteria, it'll be released to the developer. If it's not, it will be blocked. This is a nice way to go ahead and ensure that things that you're bringing in, aren't nefarious. Then we have stuff like block release bundle. Later on this week, we'll talk about some of the distribution methods, but release bundle is a distribution method we have, and this is one last check before it goes out to wherever it's being distributed to. And then, of course, we have fail build. Now, fail build will send a termination event to any sort of CI process or CLI process or IDE. And then we've also just introduced allow grace periods. So in other words, say something is found, you can give your developers X number of days in which to rectify this. So this way you're not killing it immediately, but you're giving it at least a little bit of leeway. So 3 days later, though, they will have a different set of issues because we will block the actual consumption of the binary and we'll kill the actual build itself. Let me just talk about secure licensing. So licensing rules, you give the license rule a name, you have the criteria. The actions are exactly the same. The only thing that's different is you have your allowed license list. So we have all 435 open source licenses that are available. You can define your banned license list. And then you can go in and say that you want to disallow either unknown licenses, which is very important. That's usually a clear indicator that something could potentially threatening. Or if there's multiple licenses, you can go in and block those also. Now, I only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to try to cram this in as fast as I can because I think we might go over a little on our time, but I think everything's okay with that. So then we have the idea of watches. Now, watches are how you apply your policy. So you give the policy a name, you give it a description, you can send a recipient list, you can enable your Jira ticket creation if you have Jira enabled. And then you can go in and take your policies that you have. So I might take a simple thing like a security policy here. And let's go find a license policy. I know I got a license policy in here somewhere. If I don't, I can just do a quick search. There you go. I think I got rid of my license policy. That's okay. Now let's take our security policy, and then you can determine what you want to have it against. We have this new concept called projects, so you can apply projects are a way to have a little more autonomy with groups. So you have super admins, and then you have project admins and project users. You can assign, as an InfoSec team, you can actually assign standard, basically security rules that you might want to do to a project level, so everything under that project would be part of the actual evaluation. You can go in and say that you want to apply it to repositories. You could say, I want to apply it to any repository. You can do it by pattern, or you can do it by individual repo itself. And the same is true for any builds you produce and publish, or also, too, for any of the bundles you might do for distribution, so the release bundle method. But the real point of this is that once you've actually gone ahead and implemented this kind of level of packages, I just want to show you some of the information, and I'll have Asaf come in and discuss some of this. But the thing is I just want to kind of show you is once you have this deep level packet scanning going with all the binaries that are inside, you can go ahead and look at things like such as your violations. You can look at your security threats and assessment. But what's great is that now we have some new information, and we've just improved this with the acquisition of Vdoo, and Asaf came over from that team. But what's great is that once you have that information in play, you can go ahead and look at the CV information that might be a potential threat. You can see if there's any CVSS scoring. We offer the summary, the details behind it. And then we also have our research data that we have here. We also have everything from like a security advisory, any sort of impact that this might have. So if you look here, you can see where I actually found this jar in a jar of a layer of an image of a container. But this also allows you to have all the reference materials of any pertinent articles that might be explanation why. So the thing is that what we're looking at here is all the potential threats. And in this case, this is a Docker image. This is OS. This is runtime. This is application. And when you use Xray, you can get the information directly there with a level of remediation also. But it also gives you the ability to dive in. And I mean, how many other products do you know when you have these obfuscated layers of Docker being able to actually get insight into the actual contents of it. But it's not only that. It's not only understanding what's inside your software. It's not only understanding the threat levels, but also being able to have a step back and take a look and see how far it's gone. How deep does these threat levels go, and being able to track and trace. It's all about understanding, the ability for you to go in and look at things from a different perspective, because it's all about everything that it's impacting, not only just the places it's been. Asaf, do you have any questions or anything you want to add in right now, or?
Sure. Maybe you can just jump to the CV that we bring on from the information that we bring on from Vdoo, so I can a bit clarify about that. So Vdoo is a new acquisition of JFrog, and the Vdoo product is specialized in binary analysis and product security. So there are a lot of features that are upcoming that are going to now enhance the Xray functionality over the upcoming quarters. One of the first things that we migrated from Vdoo is essentially the detailed information. At Vdoo now, part of JFrog security, we have a group of security researchers that triage the CVEs and give a lot of extra information for all CVE beyond the publicly known information such as NVDs. So you have the short summary, the details, and the security reasons of how does the JFrog security team have identified this CVE as a critical CVE. For instance, because this CVE can be exploited from remote, this is determined as a critical CVE, as opposed to, for instance, there are other factors that go beyond the CVSS, such as beyond the CVSS score, such as how many exploits exist, whether there is a technical write-up, how easy it is to exploit, and so on. We can explore this more on a different session, because I think that we ran out of time, but for sure it should give you a glance about the capabilities and the available feature set at Xray.
Excellent. And like I said, the thing is understanding exactly how you can go in and trace all these components back, such as we were talking about before, is that, not just understanding that you have an issue, but one of the nice things is that because everything is correlated inside of Artifactory, you can also see if, say, there was a problem with this version of the library, you can actually go ahead and see how many builds is this affecting. So you can see every location in which this is being utilized, which is really, it provides you insight data into, how this is being used, where it's being used, but also too, does this dependency have transitive dependencies? The ability for you to add in more metadata to make it more relevant to the way it's being utilized. Being able to go in and, like I said, trace it back into every place where it's been utilized. Having that information allows you to go ahead and have better attribution, better remediation, and just safer software in general. I know we ran over time, and we're sorry that we went over on time here, and we were a little bit discombobulated initially, but we do have more talks coming up, and we should be able to get our act together a little bit better than we are today. But we'll get there. And thank you for your time, and be safe, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you guys tomorrow, where we'll be talking about another fun and exciting topic behind this. Asaf, thank you so much for taking time and being up here so late. It's always a pleasure working with you.
Thank you, Bill.
So.
Thank you very much, Bill. It's been a pleasure to meet you all, and we look forward to see you also tomorrow.
Yes, we'll be a little bit better tomorrow.
I'm going to check my mic beforehand.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to check my AirPods. So yeah, figure out what can happen there. All right, cheers, everyone. Be safe. Be wonderful. Be well.